Hi everyone, welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fire Play podcast. I am Canna Campbell. Today's podcast is an important reminder or even a wake-up call that it is never too late to start working on your financial well-being. There is never an age where you've missed all the opportunities, it's too late, and you just have to settle for Centrelink or social support. When you put your head, heart, and mind to it, you give yourself an exciting goal. You start working and building on your own financial literacy and education, and you give yourself a bit of patience, faith, and commitment. It is incredible what you can achieve for your financial well-being. The shifts, the breakthroughs, the results. Now, today's podcast is exactly all about that. It's a two-part series where I am republishing an older podcast where I chat with Sharon, who in her 50s woke up one day and realized that she'd been playing it safe and conservative. And whilst that was fine for where she had been in her life, she realized she had no game plan in place for her and her husband to start retiring on time and retiring on a decent lifestyle that they could enjoy. They had no financial assets behind them. They hadn't even thought about their superannuation. And she decided to set some goals for herself. And in this particular podcast, she shares with you how she bought her first property, how she bought her second property, how she built a diversified investment portfolio, and how she started engaging with her superannuation to also help achieve her financial goals for her and her husband. Now, the second part of this series is catching up with Sharon 18 months later, and you will hear what else she has achieved for herself financially, how she's raised her bar, how she's even surprised and shocked herself as to what she has achieved financially, some changes, some tweaks she's made in her financial strategy, and some important, wake-up calls, even alarm bells, about the fragility of life and how that has impacted her financial well-being. Now, a quick reminder, in this podcast and in the next, you're going to hear about what, why, where, how Sharon has invested. She'll even name some of the companies that she owns in her share portfolio, and she'll talk about her superannuation. But I need to remind you, that is not personal advice. That is not investment advice. That is not strategic advice from her nor me. This podcast and next week's podcast is purely for your financial education, motivation, and inspiration. So should she talk about something you think, oh, that sounds interesting, should I be doing that? Please go and talk to a financial planner and get personal advice so that you know exactly what you're doing, all the risks, all the rules, all the limitations, and all the caps, as well as all the pros and cons, so that you can actually see the benefits of your financial decisions. Now, on that note of caps and rules and regulations, because I'm republishing an older podcast, I refer to an older superannuation cap. And I mentioned that it is $25,000 at the time, and that's what it was at the time. But as you know, rules and regulations and caps change all the time, and that cap is currently $27,500 per financial year. However, as I remind you, this is not strategic advice, it's educational only. So always get personal advice if you're wondering what's right for you. All right, enough chatting from me. I'm going to press play now, and you're going to listen to Sharon and my amazing interview where she shares how she got her finances in check at the age of 50. And don't forget to make sure you're subscribed so you can listen to the follow-up podcast next Monday. Enjoy.
Now, today we're talking about change and how quickly you can change your life. I love the saying from the Greek philosopher Socrates. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on fighting the old, but building the new. And this is a very powerful saying and very, very relevant as to the story you're about to hear right now. I think this is going to be probably one of my favorite podcasts you'll listen to this year. So we're going to be hearing from Sharon. 5 years ago, Sharon stumbled across my book, The $1,000 Project, and it gave her a huge wake-up call or realization or a call to action to change her life around financially. And over the last 5 years, Sharon has established 2 investment properties which are 100% cash flow positive, established a diversified share portfolio after many, many years of being scared and completely overwhelmed by owning shares, and has also re-engaged with her superannuation, which has been completely neglected whilst she raised her children. So Sharon, thank you so much for coming on to Financial Foreplay today. It's so lovely for you to share this really important and empowering story with everyone. Your story is remarkable, and I think it's a really important one because you probably would have heard this podcast a couple of weeks ago about the Tough Love podcast. Yours is a perfect follow-up podcast from that particular one, because it shows you when you put your head, heart and mind to it, it's amazing what you can achieve. And secondly is it's never too late to start engaging with your finances and rebuilding and starting again, and the importance of having financial goals. Can you take me back to the very beginning of where all this began? Like, where did your wake up call happen? Like, was it something you saw? Was it something you read?
Look, my husband and I, we've been married for 36 years.
Oh, wow.
I'll just tell you a bit of background. I have 3 grown children. I live in rural New South Wales, and I work full-time in a secretarial role. All the recordings so far have seemed to have been with younger people, and I just wanted to basically touch base to say that it's never too late. I'm currently 55 years old, and I really didn't start paying attention until I was 50.
Was that because you were just really busy with life?
Busy raising children, of course, like a lot of us are. Busy working, as you know, one minute it's Monday, next minute it's Friday, and just generally living life. And it wasn't until I was on holidays, actually, by myself. I was up in Brisbane by chance, and I walked into a bookstore and there was your book, The $1,000 Project. So I thought, okay, I'll go and have a sit down and I'll just have a quick look at this and see what it's all about.
Yep.
Well, my quick sit down, I think, lasted for a couple of hours, and I ended up reading the whole book. And so that was really a catalyst for me, definitely.
Wow. The thing about the $1,000 Project is it's really easy to read, and hopefully there are really great practical steps for everyone to take. And it's for all age groups. You know, I know people who've got their children doing the $1,000 Project or their version of, I'd say, $100 Project, and all different walks of life and backgrounds and goals and financial situations. So it's amazing what you can achieve when you're doing the $1,000 Project.
And it was just it was a simple approach, and it was, as you say, it was easy to read, and it was a very refreshing read. As I say, I was only going to browse, and I was just so engrossed. It was wonderful.
So you got home from your holiday. You've just read the $1,000 Project. What made you decide, particularly from the book, to write, we need to do something about our finances? Did I empower you? Did I disturb you? Did I motivate you? Like, what was it in the book that made you go, we need to start paying attention to our financial well-being?
My husband and I have always been careful savers, but I believe it might have been in episode 4, I think he was speaking to Emma, where she said the same thing, but she also said something which really resonated with me. And she said, we were careful with our money, but we weren't being wise with our money. We weren't making it work for us. That was, I think, the major point that I took on board. Yes, I had savings. Yes, I was financially secure, but it wasn't working for me.
That podcast was very, very powerful, and she's had a huge breakthrough financially, and also I think even probably emotionally as well, in starting to understand benefit and value and the importance of shares as a long-term investment strategy, solution and product.
Definitely. Look, my husband has had shares for over 20 years now. He never bought those shares. They were actually given to him when 2 of Australian companies floated. We've never actually done anything with those shares. We've always just reinvested the dividends. We've never put anything more into it. And yet over those 20 years, it's incredible how much it's grown.
It's amazing. The power of compounding interest over the long run
Definitely
is absolutely mind-blowing as to what you can achieve financially. But coming back to you though, in the space of just 5 years, when you were age 50, you've established 2 investment properties, a diversified share portfolio, and fixed up your superannuation. Like, where did you start? How did you do it?
Well, I'd always been interested in property. We live in a small rural town. I actually live on a farm about 15 minutes from a small town. It had always been in the back of my mind that I would love to have an investment property. I was never sure it would happen, but once I had increased my savings through the different projects through the $1,000 Project, I was found that I then had saved enough for a deposit for my first investment property. So what I did was I actually purchased a 1-bedroom property not far from the central business district. I decided to only start small because I had thought that if things didn't go as well as I had hoped, this was my first foray into investment properties. I was, as much as I'd read books, listened to podcasts, I was still a little bit nervous. So I thought, well, I wanted to keep it small. I had the 1-bedroom property, so I also knew that if I didn't have a tenant for any period of time, I could quite easily cover the mortgage.
That's a really important and wise strategy, because it's what we call is not overextending yourself. Quite often when I meet with people where things have gone wrong, that's the reason why and where it's gone wrong is they've overextended themselves in the first place. So I think your wisdom and intuition was really powerful here in guiding you not to borrow too large amount, to make sure that you had a really healthy size deposit, to obviously do your research, invest in an area where there is, strong rental demand. If it's going to be empty, it's only going to be empty for a short period of time. And it sounds like you really ran the numbers. You knew what the expected rent was, the outgoings, the strata, the council rates, the water levies, even a potential property manager to make sure the numbers stacked up for you.
Oh, look, definitely. I listened to podcasts, as I say, and I also did my research through books. Some very good Australian books that I actually just borrowed from my library were invaluable for me. One was The Armchair Guide to Property Investing by Ben Kingsley and Bryce Holloway. They are Australian, and that book was really a turning point for me as well.
Great.
And also my 4-year-old, The Property Investor by Cam McClellan. Once again, just simple information that not over the top, that people could easily absorb.
I think it's really important that I love that you're showing these property books, because they're quite often when you go into the bookshops and you look at the investor section, and the bookshelves are flooded with these books of like 0 to 100 properties in 2.5 years and 30 properties in 1.5 years. Like, it's all about cash flow negative property selling, and you're building a house of cards on sand on a beach, and it's a recipe for disaster. So books that really encourage cash flow positive investing, doing it slowly and steadily, doing your research. I think it's really important that those are the books you gravitate, because quite often those authors who've written those books, it's all come crashing down, and they've ended up 5 years later after being a bestseller with not many properties left in their portfolio because they've had to sell them all off because they've overextended themselves. And those aggressive cash flow negative strategies only work in the perfect financial climate when we have low interest rates and a high property growth market, which is not the case at all. And it's not always like that, as we know right now. And so often I say to people, the people who've overextended themselves are the ones that get caught swimming naked when the tide changes, because they've overextended themselves and interest rates start going up and they can't keep their head above water. And that's when the things start crashing. You have to sell one property after the other, and they're selling at lower and lower prices, and there's not much money left over, after all that hard work and blood, sweat and tears. So it sounds like you're getting some good advice from these books.
Definitely. And also too, when my husband and I were first married, we clearly remember paying 17% on our mortgage. A lot of people wouldn't remember that, but that's always in the back of your mind as well, that yes, it's wonderful at the moment, but things can change.
And to be really honest with you, that's something that really concerns me. I think we've all got short-term memories as to what it was like when interest rates were, say, 6.5%, which is more than double what most of us are paying in interest right now. And I really worry about the impact when interest rates do start going up again, which they will do. It's just a matter of time. Stress and pressure on everyday Australians' budgets and the stress on their family and their well-being is going to be really detrimental when you start seeing your mortgage payments not $2,500 a month, but it's now $4,000 a month. Where are the families going to find that extra $1,500 change because of interest rates? So if you have a mortgage right now, the best advice I can give you is do as much as you can to make a big dent in it and reducing it, so that when interest rates do start changing and going up again, you're well ahead of the game. All right, so coming back to you, how did you come up with the money for the deposit in the first place? Were the things you sold, the things you did in your lifestyle? Did you review your budget? Like, how did you come up with all this money? I know you said you're sensible with money, but you've come up with a deposit to put down on these properties.
Well, yes, basically, look, we've never had a budget, so to speak, because we are careful with our money. But for example, after reading your book, I did try some side hustles. One of them was the online surveys, but unfortunately for me, I was not suitable because of my age and because of my location, I wasn't a good candidate.
Okay.
So what I did is I moved on to selling some things that I no longer needed inside my house. I live in a 4-bedroom house. My children have all moved on and have their own homes now. And yet my house was still full. It seemed to have excess. I'm very much on the principle to live a simple life. So I found that I just had so much in my house that I didn't need or didn't use.
Yeah.
And so I went on a selling spree.
A nice declutter. It's cathartic, isn't it?
Oh, look, very much so. Look, I'm not a hoarder by any means. Yeah, every Christmas, for example, over the Christmas break, I would go through every drawer, every cupboard, every wardrobe and declutter. So it's not that I'm a hoarder by any means, but just like everybody, I had things that I didn't use. So what I began was I joined Facebook Marketplace, and to date I've sold over $9,000 worth of things in my house.
Wow. I bet that feels nice seeing that money in your savings account. And I bet your home feels more spacious.
Oh, it does. It does. Look, it's surprising. Your home feels more spacious. It takes me less time now to clean, to vacuum, to dust, because you don't have that extra furniture and things in your home anymore.
Whenever I'm stressed or anxious, I find that even if I just go and declutter or reorganize a drawer next to me, it helps clear my headspace and helps all the words and the feelings and the emotions and in my heart kind of just fall back into place again. It creates a sense of tranquility and harmony. It's also nice to let things go and create the space in our lives and, I guess, order again.
Definitely. As I say, that was fairly large. So we're talking 9,000. Another thing that I did do is we owned a caravan.
Yeah.
I like camping. Unfortunately, my husband is a farmer who spends all day outside in the heat and the dust and the flies. He's not so keen. So we found we weren't using it as much as we'd like to. So I did sell it. And what I did was I bought a smaller van for half the price of what I'd sold mine for. And that way I can go whenever I wish. I'm comfortable towing it. That also freed up some more money.
And did you do anything with the way that you were, managing your bank accounts? Or I know you said you don't have a budget, but did you do anything to just monitor your expenses to help create this deposit?
Yes, certainly. Look, I set up some different bank accounts. I think the thing in the $1,000 project, the simple thing that I found was, for example, you've gone and done a grocery shop, and at the bottom of your docket, you've saved $9.75. Well, straight away, I would put that $9.75 into a separate account.
Yeah.
I also did the rounding up, whereas if I'd bought something for $6, it rounded up to 10 and it moves that money across automatically. And it is really surprising how much just little pieces like that can make such a difference. For example, we have Foxtel at home. I rang Foxtel and I said, look, I've been a member. As it turned out, it was for 13 years, I think I'd been a member. So they gave me a $20 discount every month. So $20 automatically every month was moved to this account. Just building it up that way.
$40 in savings straight away just by picking up the phone and taking 5 minutes to call and to hustle and renegotiate. It's so worth your time doing this for everyone listening.
Another way that I save money, and look, these are all simple ways that everybody can do. Like I like to what they call shop my pantry. Basically, the supermarket where I work is right next door to where I work. So it's easy for me to pop in, and grab this or grab that. But what I do is I send a certain amount of money to my cash card. At the end of the week, if there's no money left, then I shop my pantry. I go home and I have a look to see what's in my pantry. And you'll be surprised what's in there and how creative you can be just with the staples in your pantry and in your freezer too, of course, as well.
Absolutely. My mother always said to me, we'd have like these nights for dinner, and it would often be after the weekend, but it would be a eating up the bits night, and now it's like the fashionable poke bowl where you have a bowl full of all these like beautiful colored vegetables and, perhaps some meats and grains in there. But we waste so much food. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head right now, but it's a huge amount of money that we waste in food every single year. And it's also really bad for the environment. Though the rotting food creates those methane gases, which is really bad for the planet and for the ozone. And there's just money right there. And so often people are looking for these unique, new, fashionable hacks in saving money, but 99.9% of the time, it's the really simple, basic obvious money savings that are the most effective and also the quickest at keeping money in your account or keeping and helping money build in a separate savings account. So, and I've said all this in the $1,000 project, and you are proof that this really does work.
Look, even I'm an avid reader. I will I'll finish a book and I'll immediately start another book. I love magazines, but I borrow from my library. I cannot remember the last time I bought a book, except for yours, of course. Only books I tend to buy now are finance books. So I borrow from the library. And look, being from a small community, it is important to support your local community. So people have gone away from libraries, which is a shame, because not only is there books, I know our local library has magazines, it has all the latest DVDs, there's audio books, there's just so much more. And what I've also done is, if there is a magazine that I do want, I subscribed. I have just last week subscribed to a magazine that I've been a long time reader of, and it was a 40% off. I still don't feel that I'm missing out, but I'm just more careful.
Yep, absolutely. And I can sense this from your investment strategy. So you've got your first property. It's a 1-bedroom apartment. It's rented out. It's cash flow positive, which means the rent is more than covering the principal and interest repayments. So it's paying itself off over time, and eventually you'll own it outright. Can you share me then, how did you so quickly go on to the next investment property?
Yes, certainly. So basically what I did was every spare cent that I had, I put onto the mortgage. And what I did for my second property is I actually redrew from my first mortgage as a deposit for the second unit.
Basically, not only was Sharon having the rent more than cover the principal interest repayments on her loan, so there's what we call, she was increasing the equity. So as the property was growing in value, the initial amount of money that she borrowed from the bank, that is the mortgage, was also reducing over time. So for simplicity, say Sharon bought an apartment for say $400,000 and had say a $250,000 mortgage. The rent more than covered the loan repayment. So that was slowly and steadily coming down over time. But on top of this, she was making extra ad hoc or regular repayments on top of those rental income to help the loan come down even further. So that, say in 5 years' time, that $500,000 property is now say worth, for example, say $600,000, and the mortgage is now down from $250,000 say to $200,000, which means $600,000 minus $200,000 equals $400,000. That $400,000 represents her equity. So you can hear from Sharon in a second about how she used that equity, but essentially when you go back to the bank and say, look, I've got all this equity, I'd like to be able to borrow more money. And because the banks see that equity, you look more desirable from an application perspective, because you're sitting in a safer financial position in order for the bank to then lend you more to go and acquire another property. So you went to the bank and obviously you said, look, I'd like to buy another property, and submitted your financials and your regular debt repayments, the rental income, displaying that you are a very desirable person to lend money to, and you bought your next property. Can you talk me through that?
Yes, certainly. So basically, as you say, went off to the bank, because what I had always had in the back of my mind was that I would continue to pay the mortgage as well as the tenant paying my mortgage. So basically what I did was I was paying the mortgage, and then with the rent, if I didn't have any fees applicable for that month, for example, the strata or whether, the rates were due, then that would also go onto the mortgage. So a lot of the time it was actually being doubled up. So because the bank could see as I was a good saver and that things were going well, they did allow me to borrow then for a second property. So for my second property, I was a bit more savvy by then. I understood a few more the way things worked.
Yeah.
So I actually bought a more expensive property in the same local city. And once again, very close to the central business districts. And this time it's a 2-bedroom unit.
And is your loan still principal and interest? Are you still making extra payments, making sure that that property is very secure and paying itself off over time?
Yes, doing exactly the same as I did with my first unit. I'm paying the mortgage as well as my tenant. Once again, if there's nothing payable at the time, then that money goes straight onto the mortgage as well. At this stage, they're both positively geared. And it's not just the mortgage that my tenants are paying for me. It's my strata fees, it's my rate, water and sewerage. It's covering everything plus being positively geared.
It's so important that you run your numbers. It gives you that peace of mind knowing that the decision you're making is the right one for you. It's the right one for your financial goals. And, you're never going to run the risk of the bank having to sell that property. Can I ask you questions now about your share portfolio? How did you then, on top of this, in the space of 5 years, also then, I guess, maybe start leveraging or start building upon the shares that you and your husband previously had floats? Or did you just start from scratch? Are they joint shares in your name only? Like, how did you do the shares as well?
All right, yes, so they're not joint shares. The floating shares that my husband has is separate from myself. I was never really interested in shares. I always felt there was too much volatility in them. To be honest, that was my mistake. It was just that I wasn't informed enough to make the decision. So once again, headed back to my local library and I did pick up a very good book from an Australian author once again called Shopping for Shares by Tracy Edwards. Her book explained to me what a dividend yield was. What was the price earning ratio? Was the return on equity greater than 15%? Was that a good or bad thing? What was EPS? Was less than 16%? Once again, a good or a bad thing? And that was what I wasn't aware of. Once I understood the terminology, that made my life a lot easier.
And so you did all your own research in picking the individual shares, or did you use something like a listed investment company or an ETF?
I did start with a listed investment company back in 2017.
Yep.
I just wanted to test the waters. So I regularly checked it, just watched what it was doing. And then in 2018, I did start investing in earnest, taking the money that I'd earned from the $1,000 project and just creating a very diverse share portfolio.
Property is a great investment for some people. It's not for everyone. And I myself, I have both, and I do have a very, very strong bias towards shares. And I really like the thing with shares is you can buy shares with as little as $500. Personally, I wouldn't recommend less than $1,000. But if you use something like a listed investment company such as Whitefield or Milton, and you can, that $1,000 is immediately diversified. You have, with it, by the close of business that day, you have $1,000 worth of shares in a diversified share portfolio. It's really valuable. You don't have to wait, a couple of years to save up the deposit and the stamp duty expenses. And it's a very slow and painful process. With shares, you could literally open up a share trading account online through your existing bank account, transfer the money into the share trading account and buy shares before the market closes at 4 p.m. But what are the key things that you look for personally when it comes to picking shares, like, with the earning per share and the dividend ratio and the payout ratio? What are the key numbers or stats you look for a suitable investment?
Become a bit diverse with my share portfolio. So what I've done, is I've tried to cover all my bases. So I have financial accounts, I have materials, I have healthcare, I have consumer staples. So what I'm saying there is, for example, by financial, I have bank shares.
Yes.
By materials, I have Rio Tinto. Healthcare, I have one of the health providers. I have their share. I also, consumer staples, I have shares in Woolworths. I shop at Woolworths. So basically, once I understood what all the percentages meant, another book that I'll recommend is Top Stocks by Martin Roth. That is the leading Australian companies for the year, and he lists those companies, and he also gives you the details. For example, what is the return on equity for the year? And I know from research that, for example, I'm looking for a company that has a return on equity of more than 15%. What is the debt to equity ratio? What kind of percentage do I need to be looking for that? I need to be looking for something that's less than 75%.
Yeah.
So once I understood what I was looking for and was able to find the correct books or the correct internet searches to undertake, that was when I was able to choose. Just yesterday, for example, even though it was a Sunday, I was online and I just placed an order for some more Rio Tinto shares because I could see that they were doing quite well. And as we've been speaking, an email's popped up that I brought some more shares just today.
Good. You're shopping for shares whilst recording a podcast about investing. I love that. The thing is with shares is you don't have to have only listed investments companies or only ETFs. It's not all or nothing. Like in my own personal portfolio, I think I have probably about 30 or 40% now in ETFs and listed investment companies. And then the remaining amount, I've just picked companies that I'm really passionate about that I like owning more of, like, like the supermarkets, like the airlines. like the medical companies, like the healthcare companies, the supermarkets, transportation companies, the communication companies. You don't have to have one or the other. You can build a diversified portfolio with whatever you like in it. And it's up to you. But a great place to start is the listed investment companies, such as I said, Argo, Whitefield, Milton, because it means your money is immediately diversified. And as you find your feet, as you feel more and more comfortable with the market, with investing, getting your dividends, setting everything up, and really understanding the mechanics and actually how easy it is, if you want, and only if you want, you can go and pick up and cherry pick individual companies or industries that you really like or see something exciting in the future for them.
For the long term, like for example, with COVID, of course, 2 of the shares have gone into the negative, but I'm okay with that. I've actually purchased more in the negative ones at the moment because I know that one day that they will improve. I'm in this for the next 10 years, for example. So I'm in it for the long haul.
Absolutely. Throughout this period, as soon as I've had a little bit of money, even if it was $1,000, I have gone and purchased more shares. And that's not just for the $1,000 project, that's for also my own separate personal share portfolio. When I have seen opportunities, I've jumped on them because I know I'm going to look back in 10 years' time myself and think, why didn't I buy more? Why didn't I step up to the benchmark and invest more? And obviously we're limited by what we can afford at the time and what we can do. We can only do our best. But, I think there are some amazing investment opportunities, long-term that is, of course, for the right type of investor, that's a growth investor or a high growth investor that's trying to build a diversified share portfolio and trying to build long-term growing passive income. Coming to your goals, all your activities, all your research, all your investing is very detailed and specific. Do you have a particular goal in mind that you're trying to achieve financially? Because you're investing in property, you're investing in shares. We'll come to your superannuation in a second. Is this all leading to one central goal?
It is. And that central goal is when I'm ready to retire, I want to make that decision. I don't want to be governed by finances. I don't want to say, I'm desperate to retire, but I can't retire for 2 more years. I want the power to make that decision.
I love that. I want the power to make that decision. And this is the thing, yes, we do have an age pension. Yes, we might be able to lean on our partner or family members, for financial assistance, but why would you want to have to do that? We all have the ability to create so much independence and freedom for ourselves. And it's littlest things over a long period of time that have a profound change. It's so easy. And you can almost set and forget with a lot of the stuff that I recommend. Of course, everything needs to be reviewed and checked if you're really serious and big goals and dreams. But you don't have to be reliant on the government. And even if you wanted to, it's such a small amount of money you would get from the government and so miserable. And how do you know that your partner, your husband, your family will be able to be in a strong enough position financially in the future to be able to afford to support you? So I love that you've gone out on your own. You're an independent woman. You've got these goals, you've got these ambitions, and you've put the right action habits and mindset in a place to achieve this. It's absolutely inspiring beyond belief.
Thank you. We won't be receiving the age pension. As I say, we live on a farm. So like most farmers, we're asset rich, but so we are not relying on the pension at all. So as I say, we just want the choice to have this. And so many times you hear people at old age, they're too frightened to turn on their heater or to boil the kettle to have a cup of tea because they can't afford to pay their electricity bill. And whilst I know I'll never be in that position, that is just something so powerful that I just didn't want to happen.
I love that you've used that fear to channel your action, proactive action. People can be so scared that they almost are drawn towards their fear, or they manifest their fear. All they think about is what they don't want to happen. So then they subconsciously attract it. But when you learn to change your mindset and use that as a channel, that fear and that nervous energy and anxiety towards creating a life that you do want, it's really, really powerful. But you've got to obviously wake up that awareness of what you're subconsciously creating and reset your attitude and your approach and your habits and actions towards what you do want. It's really exciting about where you're going. Can I ask now about your superannuation? Because you've been looking at raising your children. Women, it's really easy to neglect your superannuation when you bring into the equation of life. So when you're bringing into the equation of life children, because your superannuation gets pushed even further down the list of priorities. You have managed to re-engage and reactivate your superannuation to get more money into into that. Can I ask what made you realize it's important and what you've been doing?
Once again, through your book and just through what I was reading, what I was listening to, I really wasn't paying any attention to my super. Of course, when I first started working in my 18, 19, I had my super. I then left the workforce for approximately 12 years to raise my children. And then going back into the workforce, having my super, once again, you're living life with your children, with your husband, just the day-to-day activities. And it wasn't until I once again started, probably about 50, 52, thinking, okay, I'm getting close to retirement age. I really need to start paying attention to it.
And what have you been doing to get the money in to help make up for all that lost time?
Yes, so basically what I've been doing is I've been putting extra into my super each pay period. I arranged that with our payroll officer, so I don't see it, so I don't miss it. So that was very helpful. And then what I do is at the end of each financial year, I go online and I check to see how much super I have put in. And what I do is I actually top it up then to at the moment, it's the $25,000. So I try to get that much into it each year.
Actually, I'll share with you a little bit of a loophole in the superannuation system that the government very kindly brought in. And it's where you're able to make up for the previous years where you didn't get as much into superannuation as what you could have. So you're allowed to go back in time and say, for example, like last financial year, say I didn't make any superannuation contributions because I was, say, for example, on maternity leave. Under this special loophole, you're allowed to go back and make up for those missed contributions. So say if I didn't put anything in last financial year, I can go and put potentially double this financial year if I wanted to. Now, obviously, that would mean, say, putting up to $50,000 into superannuation, which most likely not have, but it's an option that's available to a lot of Australians out there to make up for lost time and salary sacrifice more than the $25,000 per financial year to make up for those missed contributions or those missed opportunities without breaching any rules and regulations and getting any penalties or fines. So I will link in the podcast description box the ATO link explaining this in more detail for you. But you're not necessarily limited to the $25,000 a year if you have not previously used those up in the last couple of years.
Well, that's wonderful news. I also, this year, of course, because of my age, I was due to automatically go down a tier. As you know, with super, they usually have a low growth, a balanced, a high growth, etc. So as I say, I was due to go down a tier, but because I know now and I'm a bit more savvy, I have my investment properties, I have other shares, I was actually comfortable in not only staying on the same tier, but actually going up a tier. So what I'm hoping is, as shares and property do continue to improve after COVID, that my super will increase even more.
I think that is such a smart move, and particularly for the people who are a growth or a high growth investor and really looking to get the most out of their financials and their investments, because it's a little bit like going to the supermarket at the moment. You're walking into a supermarket that's having a 25% off all your meat and breads and dairy. Common sense says, well, why don't we use this opportunity to stock up? We'll put stuff in the freezer. It's for our future. It's the same that's going on right now with the share market. So it would be madness for me to turn up to the supermarket and return all my items at the discount, reduced prices now at 25%. I'd be crystallizing serious losses. So what you're doing and talking about right now makes a lot of sense for long-term financial goals. How do you feel now about your financial situation compared to what you felt about your situation 5 years ago before reading $1,000 Project?
I feel quite content, to be honest. Yes, I do have a partner, a husband, but I know that if God forbid something happened, that I would be okay, both mentally and both financially, because I'm taking more interest. Unfortunately, in a lot of couples, it's all left up to one person.
Yes.
So it is very important to talk to your husband, talk to your partner, talk to your wife, whoever it may be. And just to know, even as I say, I'm currently 55. Don't think that you're too old. It's too late. It's never too late to turn your life around.
Absolutely. And more importantly, it's amazing what you can achieve when you put your head, heart, and mind into it. It is absolutely incredible what you have achieved. Have the last 5 years of you working on your financial goals, has it been fun? Has it been joyful?
Oh, I love it. I've actually become quite addicted. as I say, I watch my shares every day. My bank accounts I try not to check every day, but my shares I do check every day. And I've even been helping one of the young ladies at my work, just talking and chatting. Unfortunately, they did get themselves into a bit of financial difficulties.
Yeah.
But, we've talked, and she has started paying a lot of her small bets off, having the snowball effect, working her way through them. And she's so excited, and she has come so far in the last 12 months herself. And the joy that brings me to see somebody and to be teaching somebody this as well, it's just wonderful.
Helping raise up other people, which is really important, particularly in such a stressful time in the world right now.
Yes.
What's next in your life? Like, what are you going to be doing? Are you just going to continue on building up the share portfolio? Do you have another property in mind? Like, what's your strategy going forward, and what is your ultimate financial goal?
More shares, definitely. I probably won't go into different shares. I'm quite happy with, all up, I have 7 different lots of shares, 6 individual companies and 1 listed company. I'm very happy with the way they've been progressing. So I will stay with probably those same 7 and just keep building those. As you say, just $1,000 at a time when I have a bit of spare change. Property, I am happy with the 2 that I do have. Having said that, if the opportunity did come up, there was something that was just too good to pass up, I probably would look at a 3rd. We've noticed actually in this larger city that I am near, that prices have actually gone up because what we're finding is a lot of people from the cities are moving to regional towns.
Yeah, tree changed and sea changed.
Exactly. So I'm happy just to sit and work on perhaps my shares at the moment. In another couple of years, prices may change. They may not. I'm happy either way, to be honest. I'll just keep watching them and just keep going the way I am. And basically, another option, I guess, for listeners too, is I'm very much, and you have, of course, touched on this on your YouTube channel, is minimalism.
Yes.
Minimalism, it can be a wonderful way to save as well. You don't realise how much you have until you really look. Look in your wardrobe, look how many pairs of shoes you have, and those kinds of things. And because you'll find that living simply, it just all evolves. It's all wrapped up into one little parcel. Like another book, once again, was Slow, Live a Simple Life by Brooke McCallery.
It's so funny. I was looking online on Saturday night at that book, and it's on my list of books to read. I cannot wait to jump into that book. And I was like, this is perfect timing for me in my life right now, because I'm really trying to make a conscious effort to keep it simple, because I don't find it easy or simple to keep and build a simple life. It's something I'm struggling with particularly at the moment, but I find that you get so much richness of life from simplicity.
Oh, definitely. And look, there's so much out there. For example, that particular book of Brooks, I've actually listened to it 3 times through on audio through the library. I own it, but I've listened to it 3 times just in the car driving, because she has such a powerful story. And there are other books, like I know there's a lot of talk of Marie Kondo at the moment, for example. She recommends, for example, taking everything out of your wardrobe and putting it on your bed. I know a lot of people might find that overwhelming. So what I did is I just did it section by section. I took out, for example, all my T-shirts, and you'd be surprised how many T-shirts or how many shorts or jeans you may have when they're all there in front of you. And how many do you really need? How many do you really wear?
We only have 1 pair of legs, so we only really, how many jeans do we really need? And they're only 7 days of the week, and it's so easy to have this insatiable appetite to continue on consuming, but when you stop and realize and show gratitude towards how much you've got, the desire to continuously fill this bucket or wardrobe starts to reduce and dissipate, and you start to reconnect with your wardrobe and get more joy out of experimenting and having creative play with your existing items, putting together different ways and styles and outfits with what you already own.
Oh yes, look, I, like most women, I had a wardrobe full. And I found that I was always wearing those same little capsule wardrobe, so to speak. Whereas once I'd cleaned out, the variety, I'm mixing and matching a lot more. Go onto Instagram. I follow a lady who is Polish. I have no idea what she's saying, of course, but all I'm looking at is the pictures, and I think, wow, I've got that top, I've got a bottom like that. I've never thought of mixing and matching. And you'll be surprised, because when you go into your next big department store, you'll look at something and you'll think, no, I've got something already like that. I don't need another pair of jeans, or I have a shirt that's similar. And once again, they're all savings techniques that you can take on board.
I have this theory that when we come into more money, say we get a pay rise, that we buy the same thing, but just a more expensive version of it, or we buy more of the same thing. So say, for example, like your obsession is, say, stripy t-shirts. And say you come into some money, or you get a pay rise, or whatever it may be, you'll go and buy better quality, more expensive stripy t-shirts, or you'll go and buy more t-shirts. We buy more and more of the same thing, but in different ways. And unless we're aware of that temptation or lifestyle creep or budget trap, we can waste a huge amount of money and add no value to our lives whatsoever.
Yes, well, it's funny that you say stripy tops, because I am a blue and white stripy top fan, and I have forbid myself not to buy any more, because I know exactly what's in my wardrobe, and I know that I do not need another stripy top.
I'm like that with pink jumpers at the moment. I put myself on a pink jumper ban, because I've got enough shades covered, from light to dark and from pastel to highly saturated pink. So I'm on a pink jumper band. But having that awareness is really important, really valuable. And if I don't buy a jumper, there's say $70-$80 saved immediately. It's important, and unless you're aware of it, I could very easily be jumping online or heading up to my local supermarket or shopping mall, I should say, and mindlessly consuming and buying stuff that I simply don't need and doesn't add any value to my life.
Well, that's exactly right. And look, as a very wise woman once said, she only now has things that she loves, values, uses, and appreciates. Once again, yes, I do. I only have now in the house things that I love, value, use, and appreciate.
And how do you feel when you look at those things?
Oh, look, wonderful. For example, too, another way is, do I have something that I already have in the house that has dual purpose? For example, my daughter is currently living with us. Unfortunately, during COVID, she lost her job and she came back to live with us for a short time. Her blender broke, and I said, well, look, I've got something similar here. Why don't you try using that? So we don't need the latest and greatest and every version of everything. We may have something
gadgets and
that will do the
gizmos.
same job.
Absolutely. And sometimes I'm so tempted to go out and buy a blower for my driveway, because it just seems to be like a magnet for twigs and leaves at the moment. But I'm like, I've got a broom and I've got a dustpan and broom as well. Like, I do not need to go out and spend $150 on a electric blower, which I've got to find storage for somewhere for it, and I've got to plug it in for electricity, and that's not going to really add any value to my life. And also, sometimes using a bit of elbow grease, a bit of manual hard work is actually really, really meditative as well. They're like kind of like weeding a garden. It's something actually really pleasurable and enjoyable, putting your own manual labor into your own upkeep and being house proud as well. Look, Sharon, it has been an honor chatting with you. I'm so incredibly grateful for you taking the time to share with this story, but more importantly, to help inspire and rebuild faith in women of your age group, of women who are having to start again from scratch, or women who are just thinking, I'm just going to throw the towel in and not bother and just settle for less. Listening to your story, even I feel incredibly motivated and inspired to go for more, to dream for more, to reach for more, to try a little bit harder, to fine tune and tweak my strategies, my hacks, my habits, to just do a little bit more. And I can hear in your voice that you are not someone who has financial stress or worry in your life. If you could share one last thing, or whether it be, if you could go back in time, or if you were talking to your younger self, or if you were talking to your own daughter about money and financial management, what would that one thing be?
Knowledge, I think, is a very powerful thing. If I had have known back, for example, even when we were first married, in my early 20s, that compounding interest is the thing. If I had have bought shares, if I had have bought property in my early 20s, then, some 30 years later, my portfolio would be worth a lot more money. Having said that, that didn't stop me. As I say, it's never too late to start, to put things into action. I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere, when is a good time to start? It's as soon as you can.
Absolutely.
Just start. That's the main thing.
Today, right now, the moment you
Yes.
finish listening to this podcast.
Yes, the moment you finish listening, go into your house, look around, see what you can sell, open up that share portfolio with your $1,000 that you've saved, and you'd be surprised how addictive it can become.
Absolutely. Everyone that I've spoken to that's done a $1,000 project has so much joy and energy in their voice. And it's so rewarding for me to hear this, because sometimes I've been doing the $1,000 project for 5 years now. And sometimes I think I'm in my own little, especially because of all the YouTube content I create, it's just me talking to a camera or a lens. So only until doing this Financial Foreplay podcast have I been able to engage with people, listen to people's stories. And I'm so glad that it's helped you, it's helped other people realize how powerful you are and what you can do, and the importance of having a separate savings account, nicknamed the $1,000 project account or my investment property savings account, and proactively and mindfully transferring those savings and those extra money that you attract in your life the moment they hit your account. So you never get tempted to spend it. The moment it hits $1,000, you do something for yourself towards your financial goals, whether it be paying off debt, whether it be investing, whether it be saving up for a deposit, whatever it may be, put it towards your financial health. And I promise everyone who's listening right now thinking about whether I should do it, my answer is yes. Do it right now.
Yes.
Do it today. Thank you so much, Sharon. I really appreciate it.
So thank you everyone who listened to Sharon's podcast, her story, her journey, her experience. Again, a reminder that everything she spoke about and mentioned is not product or personal advice or strategic advice. And again, a quick reminder to make sure you are subscribed to my podcast so that you can listen to what she has achieved 18 months later, how she's taken her finances to the next level, and how she's even surprised herself by what she can do on her own financial well-being workout. All right, everyone, have a great week, and don't forget to make sure you're following me on my Instagram account at SugarMamaTV so you're always up to date on all of my content. All right, everyone, ciao for now.